Federal judge has denied former Milwaukee County Judge Hannah Dugan's request for an acquittal. Now, in December, a jury found Dugan guilty of the obstructing a proceeding before a U.S. governmental agency felony charge.
Good afternoon, beautiful people, and happy Monday. I hope you guys had a wonderful Father's Day and felt incredibly loved. Okay, so I have some questions for you all. What happens when the person responsible for enforcing the law is accused of helping someone avoid it? What happens when that person isn't an activist nor a politician, but rather a judge sitting on the bench? And perhaps the biggest question of all, what happens when a judge allegedly decides that her personal beliefs outweigh the law that she swore an oath to uphold? Well, former Milwaukee County Judge Hannah Dugan has now suffered another major legal defeat after a federal judge refused to overturn her felony conviction. And while her legal team is already preparing for the next battle, this story may be heading towards something much bigger than Wisconsin. It could actually land before the United States Supreme Court. So how far is too far? Welcome to Nellie Miranda. As always, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Okay, so federal prosecutors alleged that Judge Hannah Dugan helped an illegal migrant avoid federal immigration authorities. The individual at the center of the case was Eduardo Flores Ruiz, a Mexican national, who was reportedly the target of an ICE enforcement action. Federal agents arrived at the courthouse intending to take Flores Ruiz into custody. Instead of allowing the arrest to proceed, Hannah Dugan directed the individual through a different exit route, helping him temporarily evade federal agents.
Outside Judge Hannah Dugan's courtroom were agents from ICE, FBI, and other federal agencies. On April 18th, they plan to arrest Flores Ruiz after his hearing. Prosecutors say Dugan ordered the agents go speak with the chief judge in a nearby office. And then prosecutors say she went back into her courtroom, brought Flores Ruiz to a non-public jury door, which leads to a hallway with two doors.
One of the doors leads right here to a flight of stairs, which takes you all the way to the next floor. But Flores Ruiz did not use this door.
Instead, surveillance video shows him and the public defender leaving through the second door, back into the public hallway, feet away from Dugan's main entrance and a waiting agent. Agents said outside they chased him and finally arrested him.
So the allegations are the foundation of a federal criminal case, and a jury agreed. Back in December, jurors convicted Dugan on a felony obstruction charge. However, they acquitted her on a separate misdemeanor concealment charge. So while it wasn't a total victory for prosecutors, it was still a felony conviction, and that's the charge carrying potentially serious prison time. But even after the conviction, Dugan's legal team isn't ready to surrender. Not even close. First, they asked the judge to throw out the conviction, denied. Then they came back again, and once again, they asked the judge to essentially disregard the jury's verdict and enter a judgment of acquittal.
Carl, I mean, the whole debate really is over one word. This case isn't over yet. I think it's important to say that. You can expect that the Dugan defense team is going to appeal this case. And this is now the second time that federal judge Lynn Edelman ruled against Dugan. Twice her team has asked the judge to overrule the jury. At the beginning of June, he heard oral arguments on Dugan's second request. The debate was all about one word: proceedings. In December, a jury found former Judge Dugan guilty of obstructing a federal agency's proceedings. Immigration agents were waiting outside of Dugan's courtroom to arrest a defendant. In April, a U.S. appeals court in Virginia ruled that obstructing an ICE arrest warrant does not constitute interfering with a federal proceeding. So Dugan's team asked the federal judge to throw out the guilty verdict and rule she is not guilty. Prosecutors argued other cases back up the conviction, and they argued that the appeals court case does not apply to the Dugan case.
That means that they are telling the courts, even though 12 jurors heard all the evidence and voted guilty, we believe there wasn't enough evidence to support the conviction. I think that's a difficult argument to win. Courts generally give tremendous weight to jury verdicts. After all, jurors are the people tasked with evaluating the evidence. So convincing a judge to erase a jury conviction is never easy. So again, this past week for a second time, Judge Edelman rejected the request and the conviction remains in place. This is what Judge Edelman had to say. Take a listen.
Judge Lynn Edelman writes in his decision, I'm going to quote here, "In sum, that other case, majority opinion, provides no persuasive justification for excluding the ICE proceedings at issue in this case from the coverage. Reading that other case more broadly to exclude all ICE enforcement and removal operations regardless of the stage cannot be reconciled with the plain language of the statute." So that's the bottom line. Judge Lynn Edelman here in Wisconsin is ruling against Judge Dugan's petition to have the case thrown out and have her guilty verdict thrown out, and instead finding her not guilty in light of this debate at the appeals court in another part of the country, which is in Virginia. So I'm told that it's very likely, I mean, it's almost assured that Dugan's defense team is going to appeal this. That would be a different circuit court of appeals, the Seventh Circuit, which is based in Chicago. So if they rule against Dugan, this potentially could set up a circuit split, meaning this case could end up all the way to the United States Supreme Court.
What's interesting is that Dugan's attorneys pointed to a completely different federal appeals court ruling from Virginia. And in that case, judges determined that obstructing an ICE arrest warrant did not necessarily qualify as interference with a federal proceeding. But Judge Edelman wasn't persuaded with that argument and basically responded saying, "That's Virginia. This is Wisconsin, different court, different circuit, and different circumstances." But let's zoom out a little bit, because regardless of where someone stands politically, I think there is a much larger issue here. What is the role of a judge? A judge isn't supposed to be a prosecutor, a defense attorney, nor an activist. They're supposed to be a neutral referee. The entire judicial system depends on public confidence that judges are following the law rather than their personal preferences. And as soon as judges begin picking and choosing which laws deserve enforcement, there will be zero confidence in our justice system. But to be clear, this story is far from over. Sentencing still hasn't happened yet. So while everyone is talking about appeals and legal theories, the reality is that Dugan still faces potential prison time. Whether she receives anywhere near that amount remains to be seen. At the end of the day, this case isn't really about one courthouse door. The question remains, can judges be held criminally accountable when prosecutors believe that they've crossed the line? And how far does judicial discretion extend? We need answers. But what are your thoughts? Should judges face criminal consequences if they interfere with law enforcement operations, or was her stepping down from her position enough? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you got any value from today's video, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to support the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss future updates. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.